The trouble on Zalara 9X Zalara 9 was not a normal place. It was a space colony far from Earth, built by both humans and aliens to live in peace. Tall silver buildings touched the sky, and flying ships zoomed between glowing towers. It looked peaceful, on the outside, but inside tension always floated in the air. Aliens and humans had learned to live side by side, but they didn't really trust each other. And there was one alien girl who made things worse every day. Her name was Lirea. She was young, beautiful, and the daughter of an important alien ambassador. Her skin glowed with a soft blue shimmer, and her eyes were a deep violet that sparkled in the light. But her beauty hid something dangerous. She didn't care about rules. She skipped meetings. She crashed parties. She made fun of humans and called them soft flesh weaklings. Everyone feared her, not because of her power, but because of her father. No one dared to touch her, not even the alien guards. One day, during the annual HFY Peace Festival, humans and aliens gathered in the central square of Zalara 9. Children played, music echoed from tall speakers, and food from 100 worlds filled the air with amazing smells. Lirea arrived late, flying her personal skybike, far too fast. She zipped past guards and ignored traffic signs. People jumped aside. Then it happened. She lost control of the bike for a second. It spun, dived down, and crashed into a heavy military supply truck parked in the corner. The truck didn't move much, but the impact echoed loudly. Everyone turned to look. The truck's door opened. A human stepped out. He was tall, strong, and wore a dark uniform with silver stripes. His face was calm. His eyes were sharp and serious. His name was Commander Rain Carter, a respected human soldier who had served in peacekeeping missions for over 10 years. He looked at the broken bike, then at Lirea, who stood up and brushed dust off her sleek purple outfit like nothing had happened. "You scratched my bike," she said, annoyed. "Are you blind or just slow, human?" People gasped. Silence spread across the square. Even the alien guards froze. No one dared speak to Carter like that. But Carter didn't get angry. He didn't shout. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply looked at her and said, "You almost killed someone with that stunt." Lirea laughed. "Oh, please. They should have moved faster. Not my fault they crawl like snails." Carter took a step forward. His voice stayed calm. "You need to be responsible. Someone could have died." "I'm not some soldier like you," she snapped. "I'm Lirea of House Velrin. I don't follow human orders." Carter looked around. People watched with wide eyes. No one moved. He leaned in slightly and said quietly, "Then maybe it's time you learned how to follow any rules." Lirea's eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat?" "No," Carter said. "It's a warning." Before more could happen, alien guards came running. They tried to apologize, tried to explain. "She didn't mean it, Commander, please understand. She's still young." But Carter didn't respond to them. He turned away and walked back to his truck. Lirea stood frozen. She had insulted many people in her life, but this human didn't flinch, didn't fear her father, didn't bow to her status. Later that night, news of the crash spread across Zalara 9. Videos showed Lirea laughing and Carter standing firm. Alien leaders were embarrassed. Human leaders were angry. The Galactic Peace Council called for a meeting. Lirea's father demanded her release without punishment. But the human commander proposed a different idea. "Let her stay with me for 1 week. Let her learn discipline the way we teach it." Aliens in the room shouted in protest. Lirea stared at Carter like he had lost his mind. But the council was tired of excuses. They agreed. Lirea was handed over to Commander Carter's command, starting the next morning. She couldn't believe it. A proud alien noble, forced to follow orders from a human soldier? She laughed again, thinking it would be easy. She'd break his rules, make fun of his training, and return home with more stories to brag about. But she didn't know one thing. Carter wasn't like the others, and this time, discipline wasn't a punishment. It was a lesson she couldn't run from. Sentenced to the human Liraya woke up the next morning in a soft bed with silk sheets and a wide window that showed the stars beyond Zalara 9. She stretched, yawned, and smiled. She had completely forgotten about yesterday's punishment. "Let the human try," she muttered to herself. "He'll break before I do." But when her door opened, it wasn't a maid or a servant. It was two human soldiers, fully armored, serious faces, standing tall like statues. "Liraya of House Velrin," one said. "You are required to report to Training Camp 17 under Commander Carter's direct command. Now." Liraya blinked. "You're serious?" They didn't even blink. 30 minutes later, she stood outside the military training camp on the edge of Zalara 9's barren plains. Sand blew across the ground. The buildings were metal and gray. Soldiers marched in lines. No music, no laughter, no comfort. It felt like stepping into another world, one where her name meant nothing. Carter stood near the gate, arms crossed. He didn't bow, he didn't smile. He just nodded once. "You're late," he said. Liraya scoffed. "And you're boring." He pointed toward a barrack. "That's your room. No luxury, no assistance. You clean your own mess. Lights out at 2100 hours. "I don't know what that means," she replied, rolling her eyes. "You will," he said. "Follow me." She walked behind him, pretending to be annoyed. But her eyes scanned everything, the way the humans worked, trained, moved in perfect rhythm. There was no chaos here, no noise, only discipline. Carter led her to a classroom-like area. On the board behind him was a list. Wake up. 05 gear morning drill, 06 gear. Combat training, 08 gear duty rotation. 11 gear study session, 15 gear debrief, 20. She almost laughed. "What is this? Boot camp for babies?" Carter stared at her. "This is where you learn to think beyond yourself." "I already think fine," she replied. "I think you're wasting your time." Carter didn't argue. He handed her a uniform. Not a shiny dress, not royal armor, just a plain gray training suit like every other recruit wore. "No special treatment," he said. "You are one of the soldiers now." The next few hours were torture for Liraya. She was told to run, so she walked. She was told to carry crates, so she let them fall. She was told to salute, and she rolled her eyes. Everyone watched her. Some were amused, others whispered, "She won't last the day." But Carter never raised his voice, never punished her harshly. He simply repeated the instructions, again and again. By noon, her muscles ached. Her hands were sore. She wasn't used to this. No magic, no machines, no servants. She slumped on a crate and said, "I'm done. This is a joke." Carter walked over, handed her a bottle of water and said, "You can leave, but the lesson ends with you, not with me." "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked. He leaned in and said softly, "It means if you quit now, your people will keep laughing at humans. But if you stay and grow stronger, maybe they'll finally understand why we don't need crowns to lead." Liraya didn't answer. That night she lay in her small bed, arms sore, back aching. She couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about his words. No one had ever told her the truth to her face. Not like that. Not calmly. Not without fear. She turned to the ceiling and whispered, "He's not like the others." In the morning, the bell rang at 5 a.m. Carter waited outside, expecting her to skip the routine, but the door opened. Liraya stepped out, wearing the gray uniform. Hair tied up, eyes narrowed. "I'm not here to impress you," she said. "I just don't like losing." Carter gave a small smile. "Then let's begin again." But deep inside, both of them knew. This wasn't just a punishment anymore. It was the start of something greater, the rules. She couldn't break. Liraya had always lived life her own way, born into royalty, raised like a storm, and praised for her wild spirit. She believed rules were for weak people, rules were chains. But at Training Camp 17, the rules didn't care who you were, and neither did Commander Carter. Day 3 began before the twin suns even touched the sky. A loud alarm buzzed through the air. Lyraya rolled out of bed groaning, her muscles sore from the drills. She wanted to skip. She wanted to scream. But something inside her wouldn't let her. She put on the gray training suit and stepped out. The cold wind of the plains hit her face. Other recruits stood in straight lines, no one spoke. Carter was already there, sharp as ever. He didn't shout. He simply raised one hand. Drill begins. Run 5 laps around the compound. No powers. No shortcuts. Lyraya scoffed. She didn't run. She floated. With a small push of her energy field, her feet lifted off the ground. She passed every recruit in seconds, smirking. But Carter didn't blink. When she landed, he was waiting. "You cheated," he said. "I got it done," she replied with a smirk. He nodded. "Then do it again, on foot. 10 laps. Her smile faded. "What? That's not fair." "You're right," he said calmly. "It's not. But it's the rule." And so she ran. This time for real. Sand filled her shoes. Her breath came heavy. By the 7th lap, she was crawling. The recruits passed her one by one, but none left. They respected the rule even if they didn't like her. Carter didn't help her, but he didn't stop her either. By the time she finished the 10th lap, she collapsed on the ground. For the first time in her life, she had earned no praise, no applause, only silence. The days that followed were worse. Carter gave her the same rules he gave the others. Clean your bunk. Eat last. Help the weakest first. She rebelled. At first, she left her bed messy. Carter made her clean every bunk. She tried to skip meals. Carter assigned her kitchen duty. She laughed at a wounded recruit. Carter made her carry him during drills. Every time she broke a rule, he didn't yell. He added weight to her lesson. She began to notice something strange. The other soldiers, human and alien, stopped avoiding her. They helped her. They shared water. They didn't fear her name. They saw her as one of them, when she followed the rules. One evening, Carter handed her a datapad. It was filled with reports of past wars, how humans had survived with strategy, unity, and order. She read one line out loud. "Discipline is not about power. It's about control over yourself." She stared at it, confused, angry, curious. She never thought discipline could make someone stronger. But the real test came on day 5. During the equipment check, one alien soldier slipped and dropped a heavy metal crate. His arm broke with a sickening crack. He cried out in pain. The others panicked. Lyraya stood nearby. She froze. In the past, she would have turned away, maybe even laughed. But something inside her shifted. She rushed forward, lifted the crate, and supported the soldier. He was twice her size. It didn't matter. She called for help, stayed with him. Spoke calmly. Carter arrived just in time to see her tearing fabric from her own uniform to stop the bleeding. He didn't smile, didn't praise her. He only nodded. "You followed the rule," he said. "Help the weakest first." Lyraya looked at him, not with anger, not with pride, but with something new. Understanding. That night, she sat alone outside her barrack watching the stars. She whispered to herself, maybe, some rules are worth following. And for the first time, she didn't feel chained. She felt free. The night she cried. The sky above Camp 17 burned in shades of orange and violet as the twin suns dipped below the horizon. The evening winds howled over the dry plains, sending dust spinning through the air like ghosts of forgotten wars. Lyraya sat alone on a stone step outside her bunk, arms resting on her knees, her face marked with dirt and sweat. Her fingers were scraped. Her shoulders ached. And for once, she didn't complain. She wasn't the same arrogant girl who arrived a few days ago. Something inside her had cracked, but not in a bad way. It was as if the walls she had built all her life were finally starting to fall. Dinner was silent. The recruits ate their portions quickly. No one pushed. No one argued. They ate as a team. One by one, they left the mess hall. Lariah stayed behind to clean the tables, a punishment she was given days ago, but now did without protest. Carter stepped in quietly, watching from a corner. "You're improving," he said finally. She looked at him, her violet eyes tired but calm. "You said I'd learn. I didn't believe you. And now?" She paused, lowering her gaze. "Now I think maybe I needed this." Carter walked over and handed her a fresh cloth. Needing something doesn't mean it's easy. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that shape us most. There was a strange silence between them, not awkward but heavy, like something unspoken was sitting in the room with them. Later that night, just past lights out, a scream echoed through the outer fields. A young recruit had wandered beyond the safe zone, chasing a glowing insect for fun. But fun turned to horror. The creature that appeared wasn't large, but it was fast, sharp, and hungry. The recruit screamed again. Without thinking, Lariah shot out of her bunk, barefoot, grabbing only a light weapon from the wall. She sprinted through the dark, heart pounding, mind racing. Her alien eyes adjusted fast. In the distance, she saw the creature, a long-limbed beast like a cross between a lizard and a spider circling its prey. The recruit was trapped under a fallen antenna dish. Blood trickled from his leg. Lariah didn't stop to think. She ran, straight at the beast, screaming to distract it. It turned toward her, its jaws snapping. She fired once, miss, fired again, graze. The beast leaped toward her. Suddenly, a figure appeared. Commander Carter, leaping from a side path, blade in hand. He didn't hesitate. He swung fast and hard, striking the creature mid-air. It shrieked and tumbled. A third swing ended it, but not before one of its claws slashed across Carter's arm, deep and brutal. He dropped to one knee, breathing heavy. Lariah ran to him. "You're bleeding." "I've had worse," he muttered. She knelt beside him, pulling out her emergency med kit. Hands shaking, she applied pressure. His blood soaked her fingers. "You could have died," she whispered. "I could have let you die," he replied. "Why didn't you?" Her voice cracked. "Why do you keep protecting me?" He looked at her, not like a soldier, not like a teacher, but like someone who understood pain. "Because I see someone inside you who's worth saving, even if you don't see her yet." Back in the camp medical room, Lariah sat by Carter's side as the auto sutures sealed his wound. He had passed, out from blood loss. She didn't leave. The room was quiet, cold. For the first time in her life, no one was watching her, no one expecting her to be strong. And in that silence, she broke. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Not loud, not wild, just soft and real. Not because she was scared, but because someone had risked everything for her. Not because of her name, not because of her father, but because of who she could become. That night she cried quietly in the shadows. And when the suns rose the next morning, Lariah was not the same girl anymore. She wasn't just being trained. She was changing. The transformation. The twin suns rose slowly over Camp 17, casting long golden shadows across the training grounds. But this morning something was different. Not the weather, not the drills. Lariah. She stood outside before the alarm even rang, dressed in the plain gray uniform, boots laced tight, her posture straight and silent like a true soldier. For the first time since her arrival, Commander Carter wasn't the one waiting. She was. Recruits watched in quiet surprise as she ran her 5 laps without floating, without shortcuts, without complaints. Each step hit the ground with purpose. Each breath was heavy but controlled. Each drop of sweat meant something now. The whispers around her changed. She's serious now. She's not showing off. She's one of us. She had gone from the wild alien girl who mocked everyone to the one others followed with their eyes, and maybe, slowly, with respect. During training, she was paired with Rican, a young human recruit with an injured leg. The others avoided sparring with him, afraid of hurting him more or slowing their progress. Lariah didn't hesitate. She held back her speed, matched his rhythm, encouraged him. When he fell, she helped him up. Not once, not twice, every time. After the session, Rikan saluted her and said, "You didn't have to go easy on me." Lyraya shook her head. "I didn't go easy. I went with you." He smiled. She didn't. But later, while alone, she did smile. Just a little. That afternoon, a food delivery arrived from a nearby supply post. It was chaos. The hover droids malfunctioned and crates spilled everywhere. Lyraya could have walked away. She didn't. She was the first to lift the fallen containers. She shouted clear instructions. She directed recruits, both alien and human, with calm strength. Commander Carter watched from a distance, arms crossed. A fellow officer leaned over and whispered, "She's not the same girl who got here 5 days ago." Carter didn't respond, but his eyes said everything. Later that night, the recruits sat around a small fire pit outside their bunks. It wasn't part of the schedule, just something they did to unwind. For the first time, Lyraya joined them. She sat quietly as the humans told stories of Earth, of forests, oceans, and gravity that didn't shift every hour. The aliens shared memories of glowing skies and crystal, fields from their homeworlds. Someone passed her a mug of warm root brew. She took it, sipped. No comments, no jokes, just listened. Then she surprised them all. She told her own story. "I was raised behind golden walls, told I was perfect, that I could do anything, that no one had the right to stop me." She paused, looked into the fire. "But no one ever told me how to earn anything, until I came here." No one laughed. No one mocked her. For the first time, she wasn't just accepted. She was understood. The next morning, Carter handed her a data pad. "This is your performance log," he said. "Your probation ends today. You're free to return to your home if you wish." Lyraya stared at the screen. One swipe of her finger, and she'd be done. Return to luxury. Servants. Status. Comfort. But the data pad felt heavier than it should. She looked up. Around her, the recruits trained, worked, laughed. She belonged here now, in this sweat, in this effort, in this struggle. "I'm not leaving," she said. Carter raised an eyebrow. "You'd stay, even without orders?" "I don't want orders," she said. "I want purpose." He nodded once. "Then your real training begins now." The return of the father. The shuttle landed without warning. Its engines roared like a storm from the past, scattering sand across Camp 17's parade grounds. The sleek black hull bore the royal crest of House Velrin, the emblem of Lyraya's noble bloodline. Everyone stopped what they were doing. The wind died. The camp fell silent. Commander Carter stood at the gate. Beside him, Lyraya waited. Not in her royal gown, but in the same dusty gray uniform as the others. No crown, no guards, no glow of superiority, just discipline in her stance and calm in her eyes. The ramp lowered. Out stepped Ambassador Velrin, tall, regal, with silver markings on his blue skin and eyes that could freeze fire. He looked around in disgust as if breathing this military air was beneath him. Then he saw her. His daughter. Not the girl he remembered, but a soldier. "Lyraya," he said, his voice sharp. "I've come to take you home." She stood still. "Home? I thought I was home?" The ambassador's eyes narrowed. "You've proven your point. This experiment is over. You've made a fool of yourself long enough. Now return before your name is stained forever." Carter stepped forward, but Lyraya raised her hand, silently telling him to stay back. She walked toward her father, slowly, every step like a heartbeat. "I didn't come here to prove anything to you," she said. "I came because I needed to find out who I really am." He looked at her, confused. "You are Velrin. That is enough." "No, father. That was a name. I needed more than that. I needed to earn something for myself." The ambassador's tone turned cold. "So now you think like a human? Wear their rags? Follow their orders like a servant?" Carter remained quiet, watching closely. Other recruits gathered at a distance. No one dared interrupt. Lariah didn't flinch. No, I don't think like a human. I think like a person who finally understands what it means to grow. You gave me everything except discipline, except truth. He gave me that. The ambassador's pride cracked for a moment. You're abandoning your blood. She stepped back. No, Father. I'm honoring it by becoming someone you never thought I could be. He turned to Carter, anger sharp in his voice. You did this. Carter met his gaze calmly. She did this. I just showed her the road. She walked it alone. There was silence. For the first time, the ambassador had nothing to say. Later, in the commander's office, Carter handed Lariah her exit papers. You're free to go. You earned that choice. She looked at the document. A single signature would return her to wealth, status, and safety, but she placed it back on the table. I want to stay. Carter raised an eyebrow. Even knowing what it will cost you? Yes, she said, because this life is real. Word spread fast. The ambassador's daughter refused to leave. She wasn't forced to stay. She chose it. Other recruits began to look at her differently, not as royalty, not as punishment, but as one of them. Later that evening, she stood before the team as Carter announced, effective tomorrow, recruit Lariah is promoted to squad leader of Unit 5. Gasps, whispers, but no protest. Lariah didn't smile. She simply saluted, then turned to her team and said, We rise together, or not at all. Far above, in the ambassador's ship, Velrin watched from the viewing screen. He didn't understand how he had lost her, or maybe, just maybe, he hadn't lost her at all. Maybe he was seeing her for the first time. The transformation. The wind moved differently that morning. It didn't carry rebellion. It carried resolve. The camp still looked the same. Metal towers, dusted training grounds, and rows of disciplined recruits. But among them stood someone new. Not by name, not by face, but by spirit. Lariah. She stood tall in her gray uniform, her once shimmering royal hair now tied back tight. No jewelry, no glowing robes, just dusty boots, calloused hands, and a fire in her eyes that had never been there before. She was no longer the ambassador's wild daughter. She was becoming a soldier. At the morning roll call, she arrived early. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Carter noticed but said nothing. That was his way. He let actions speak louder than praise. When the alarm rang for drills, she didn't wait for orders. She led the run, pushed harder, helped the slow, didn't boast. And when a younger recruit tripped and scraped her knee, Lariah was the first to kneel beside her. You okay? She asked gently. The girl nodded, eyes wide with surprise. You're helping me? Lariah smiled faintly. Someone once did the same for me. Later that day, a training bot malfunctioned during combat exercises. It spun out of control, targeting anyone within reach. The recruits scattered. Lariah didn't run. She lunged forward, slammed the emergency shutdown panel, and took the hit to protect the others. Her side burned, bruised, but when she stood, everyone clapped. She wasn't trying to impress them, but they were impressed anyway. At lunch, she sat among the humans without hesitation. Not as royalty, as one of them. Recon, the recruit with the limp, passed her his extra water ration. For the hero of the hour, Lariah raised a brow. I'm not a hero. Maybe not, Recon said, but you're not a brat anymore either. They both laughed. For the first time since arriving, it felt real. Not forced, not fake. Belonging. That evening, Carter called her into his office. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp and the glow of a hollow map on the wall. You've changed, he said without turning. Why? She took a deep breath. Because someone finally held me accountable, no lies, no fear, just truth. Carter faced her. And what will you do with that truth? I'll build something better with it, she said. Not just for me, but for others like me. He nodded once. Then you're ready. For what? She asked. To choose. He handed her a small card, her transfer clearance. She had completed her sentence. She could return home, return to her golden life of comfort, luxury, and command. The card pulsed in her hand like a heartbeat. She stared at it for a long time, then set it down. I'm not done here, she said. Not yet. Carter looked at her in silence, not with approval, not with emotion, just pride, hidden behind calm eyes. Night fell, and for the first time, Liraya sat alone by the fire, not in isolation, but in reflection. Around her, others laughed and shared food. She watched them, not as someone apart, but as someone finally part of something real. She whispered to the stars, "This is who I was supposed to be." The girl who once spat on rules was now the woman who stood on them. A new kind of discipline. Weeks had passed. Camp 17 no longer looked like a prison to Liraya. It looked like a place where truth was born, not whispered in royal halls or hidden behind polished glass. Here, every grain of sand held memory, every scar had meaning, and she had earned hers. It was the last day of her training cycle. Carter stood before the full unit. His tone was calm but final. We have a mission, small outpost, outer ring. A civilian shelter is under threat from sandstorms and failing power. We go in, stabilize, evacuate. This is not a drill. He looked to his left. Squad 5. You. Ed. Liraya stepped forward, fully armored in the standard human field gear. No fancy cape, no glowing crest, just gray metal and courage in her eyes. Yes, Commander. She didn't need permission. She had become a leader. On the way there, the transport shook with turbulence. Some recruits looked uneasy. Liraya remained still, watching the storm swirl outside the windows. Rikan, sitting beside her, asked, "You, nervous?" She shook her head. "I've faced worse. Myself." He nodded slowly. "You're different now." She looked at him and smiled gently. "No, I'm just finally who I was meant to be." The mission was short but rough. High winds, falling debris, a failing energy core. Her team followed her every word. No hesitation. She climbed towers to reset fuses, pulled children from rubble, shielded a technician from a collapsing wall. Even when her arm was burned by a loose conduit, she didn't stop. By the end of the day, everyone in the shelter was safe, but more than that, they were inspired. The story of the wild alien girl turned squad leader would spread far beyond the outpost. Back at Camp 17, as dusk painted the sky in orange and gold, Carter called Liraya into the main hall. He stood alone, a small object, in his hand. It was a silver insignia, shaped like a flame inside a circle, the mark of a peacekeeper. "You've earned this," he said, "not because you followed orders, but because you learned to lead through discipline, not fear." Liraya stared at the badge, then looked up. "Can I train others?" Carter tilted his head. "Why?" "Because there are more like me," she said. "Kids who were never told the truth, who think strength is power, who need to learn what I learned." He placed the badge in her hand. "Then teach them well." Later that night, she stood on the edge of the compound, the stars shining above her like endless roads. Behind her, the sound of recruits training continued. Boots on sand, voices calling, discipline breathing through every heartbeat. She looked down at her scarred arm, then up at the stars. Somewhere far away, her father sat in his council chamber, still trying to understand how he had lost her, but what he didn't know was, she hadn't been lost. She had been found. A year later, across the galaxy, a new training center opened. Founded by a former alien noble, now known only by one name, Peacekeeper Liraya. She taught with silence. She led by example. She never demanded obedience. Because she had learned the truth. Discipline isn't control. It's freedom, earned through fire, and she would pass that fire on, one recruit at a time.